will. Now it's recording. Okay. So welcome everybody to the webinar. Again, we'll get started in just a minute. We have two great panelists today for the webinar, and it is being recorded. If you do have any questions or comments, please use the Q&A panel that is available in this interface so that you can provide some feedback if you like, or some questions for the panelists. Okay, so we'll just give it another minute as people start joining the webinar. All right, looks like we're getting there. Ooh. Let's try that again. Okay, there we go. Hopefully the screen share is up now. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, welcome to this webinar. We will be, wow, is the screen share showing up for you guys? It keeps cutting off for some reason.
Oh. It showed up for a minute and then it went away.
There it is.
All right, hopefully it shows up now. All right, sorry for the technical difficulty there. Hopefully it's showing up. So welcome to this webinar on the State of Java 2025 Java Landscape. These are the topics that we'll be covering, but what we would like to do is if you have any questions or comments or would like to see us discuss something a little bit more specific or a slightly different direction, please use the Q&A panel so that we are able to see your thoughts and questions, and we'll be happy to dive into those. But we'll be covering these topics loosely. First, we're going to start off with the Java version usage, which is basically what version of Java are people using based on the survey results. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about Java and cloud again, based on the responses from the State of Java survey that Zul recently did. We'll spend a little bit of time also talking about Java and AI, because that's a hot topic right now. And then if we have time, we'll get into Java app operations, migrating code bases, security, etc. But you can see the URL for the State of Java survey here. So please click on that link or punch this link in. It's just azul.com, State of Java 2025. And you can download the full report and have a look at it. So anyways, let's get started. Let's start with a quick introduction of our panelists. Freddie, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. My name is Freddie Guime. I am one of the distinguished engineers at Expedia Group. I'm an author, speaker, Java champion. I help co-organize the Seattle Java user group, and just really a pundit. So that's
Yep.
Yeah, and if I could add to Freddie is somewhat my boss, not at a workplace, but as a podcast series. So he's a producer of our podcast called Stack D, which is Keto's podcast. I'm just going along for the ride.
We rolled in
but
together.
Freddie, if you want to just mention your podcast there,
we have three of them, right? Like we have Java Pub House for Java topics, Java Off Heap for actually like news around the Java ecosystem, and of course Stack, which is the whole stack, not just Java, but also like front end, back end.
And then for us, it's Stack D, S-T-A-C-K. I call it Stack D because every time you say Stack, like people can't really hear the D on that. But yeah, Stack D. I call it Stack D, but with Keto Manhi and Lavitz and Josh Juno. But my name is Daniel Linhosa. I'm a self-employed consultant and instructor and presenter and Java champion as well. And Stack D is the podcast that I do. And I just finished up Boulder Jug here,
nice.
talking about new Java 23 enhancements. I'll be doing Denver Jug tonight. I just checked my watch, 5 degrees. Nice little temperature here.
Wait,
in
it's
Denver.
5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit, yeah. My watch says it feels like -5. So beautiful day.
Beautiful.
And then I got Boston, which will probably even be colder.
That's
and
right.
I'll be doing the Boston Jug tomorrow. Or tomorrow.
Nice. And my name is Pratik Patel. I lead the developer relations team at Azul Systems, and also a Java champion, and also member of the Atlanta Java community. We put on a great community conference here in Atlanta called DevNexus, which is coming up. So check that out too. All right.
That's right.
All right, guys, let's get started. So the first topic we want to talk about is the different versions of Java which are being used. Now, one of the things that came out of the survey was that almost 50% of folks are using Java 17 or 21. But the interesting thing is that if you look at the survey, you'll see that it's actually, yes, oh, I'm using 17 and 21, but the same people or the same company, let's say, are also still running on Java 8 or Java 11, or even we had 19% of respondents say that they're still using Java 6 or 7, which is kind of incredible. And we don't want to give these folks a hard time because we're software developers here, so we know how it is. But I
Yep.
think for me, the thing that speaks volumes to me about that is just the kind of the stability and the backwards compatibility and all the great things in the Java ecosystem or the Java virtual machine that you can have. Well, when did Java 6 come out, guys? I don't even remember, like
Oh my God.
2009 or something. I can't remember.
Yeah,
It's been so.
24. I thought it was 2014 was JDK 8, so this must have been,
Okay.
I guess, 2012. I guess.
All right. So anyways, over a decade old Java is still running stuff. But my
Yeah.
question for you guys is like, Dano, I know you work with customers, and Freddie, you work at a big enterprise software company. Do you guys have the same kind of mix for Java applications? Like you're running a whole bunch of stuff on newer versions of Java, and then like there's just the stuff over there, which is like nobody touched that kind of thing.
Yeah. For me, since I talk with a lot of people, it's been 8 for a long time. But I think Spring has kind of like pulled people towards the future, and I think that's a good thing as well. So, I'm seeing a lot more JDK 17 now.
Yeah, let me elaborate on that for our audience real quick. What Daniel is referring to is the Spring framework with Spring Boot 3.2 requires at least Java 17 to run. So if you're running Spring 2.x, you can't go to Spring 3.2 unless you move to Java 17 plus, right? That's what you're referring to. Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's their attempt to probably help pull people into the modern age of JVMs, and also probably I would guess that for Spring is an open source project, but I don't think that's either here or there. Just could you imagine having to maintain lots of different versions of Java for for a code base and blah blah blah. So I understand why they would do it. But anyways,
Right.
Freddie, what do you guys use over at your company in terms of different
Yeah,
JVM versions?
like every enterprise will have a mix. But I think it's really tilted to the later JDK versions. I think that where you see the pockets of like the legacy are essentially systems that are very hard to change because they are very entrenched into kind of like like usually you see a lot of like in the financial part where it's hard to move like this type of code base, right? Especially because like the actual code that was written for that, either was part of a third-party company or whatnot. It's like it's now a jar. Nobody knows what happened to the actual source code, and it's just running, right? And these are usually isolated systems because you don't like the one thing that if you happen to have one of these pockets of like legacy, you don't want to expose that to anything. Right, you run into like there's log4shell, there's all these other libraries that will not run on all the versions of Java, yet they are proven that have vulnerabilities. So even if there is a pocket that have those, we are extremely careful of that. Is a very closed system. There's no in and outs of it. But yeah, mostly it's really just 1721. Again, once you make the jump out of 9, things just roll smoothly. So that's fun.
Yeah. What I find interesting is the that people gravitate to the LTS, and from my understanding, LTS is a label, and it depends on your vendor. but each version is a quality product, like 16 and 15, even though they're not LTSs. But it all depends on your vendor. So if you have a great vendor like Azul, then they will dictate what that LTS means and what that support means.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. In terms of LTS versus the intermediate releases, I think a lot of the reasons for that is because it's just a label, but I think it gives people a little bit more confidence in that. Number one, there's the whole kind of long-term support, right? That's what LTS stands for. So,
Right.
one of the topics that we have for today, if we have enough time for it, is the whole migration step. And everyone knows. It doesn't matter if you're in the Java universe or the Python or JavaScript or whatever. Migrating to a new version of the programming platform is not an easy task and requires lots of time, money, of course, and introduces risk. So I think that's why people stick to the LTS releases, because they feel like it's a little bit less risk. I was saying that software developers are super conservative when it comes to operational types of things. Like let's scale up the number of cloud nodes that we have so that we can handle extra capacity even if we don't need it. But we're cowboys, if you don't mind me using that expression, when it comes to using that shiny new tool. It's like, oh, look at this fancy new library, let's go use it, right? It's like but we're like we kind of like have two minds, right? On one side, we're super conservative when it comes to operational types of things, because we probably don't want to get woken up in the middle of the night for a production issue. But then it's like, okay, wow, there's this really awesome new library, let's go use it. It may just be like something that's brand new and like there's no
Right.
thought of that. But anyways, just a quick aside there in terms of the mindset of the developer, right?
Right.
So yeah, so what I find striking is that the 6 and 7 is still like almost 19-20% usage out there. And the scary thing about that is that's not supported at all, right? They don't, as you guys know, there don't typically tend to be a lot of security bugs in the JVM because it's such a rock solid platform. But there was a security issue, a new 0-day exploit or whatever. It's like, well, what do you do then, right? It's just kind
Right.
of scary. But anyway.
Yeah, I did look it up. 2011 is when 7 came.
2011 was when 7 came out. So that
Right.
means that Java 6 probably came out in like 2009 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Wow, that was 15 years ago easily.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy. Yeah.
anyways, let's shift gears. Speaking of cloud and the stuff like that, one of the things actually inadvertently mentioned this. One of the things from the survey results was that 71% of Java development shops have more than 20% unused compute capacity in the cloud. And again, I think this, yeah, exactly. And as as all of us know, whether you're running on AWS or GCP or Azure, it ain't cheap to run on those cloud instances. But what have you guys seen? And Dano, of course, you are a consultant. You work with people, and Freddie, you work at a big enterprise software company. What's your take on like this whole like the cloud cost angle and over provisioning for like I made a little bit of a joke, right? It's like the developers are super conservative. Just give it more horsepower so it doesn't fall down. Like, what's your take on like this whole kind of angle in terms of how we're doing with Java in the cloud and how we're handling and right sizing instances and stuff like that?
Um,
That was Freddie. Yeah.
so there's almost like two parts of it, right? Like the first one is, and I think it goes to the next part is when you have somebody watching costs, right? I think you're right in that as engineers, sometimes it's like just over provision the thing so I don't have to worry about it, right? And you end up getting like an AWS C5 2x large, and you just drop it in there and use it, right? I think that there is depending on your cloud provider, you can manage the cost better. Remember that this is still a win from what it used to be, which is you buy a big iron or a server rack somewhere and then you try to like install it, right? Like there's no way for you to essentially release that cost back and let somebody else's use it. So you know, like having essentially a little bit of over provisioning is still cheaper than you actually buying big iron and being on a data center. Plus,
Mm.
it prevents you from actually running into issues, right? Like the thing that you don't want is to, you know, be down because of auto scaling, right? Let's say that you have a system that takes 10 minutes to start up and being provisioned, just have the extra capacity. But like we said, things are moving faster, and that kind of like feedback loop of I need to scale out and scale up. It's now quicker. Before you have to get the actual big iron to be, you know, released, and then you can put it in there. Now, then you have like ECS or the Docker images. They kind of like spun up, and now you're just using a virtual. You're essentially
Right.
using virtual space on somebody else's server. And now with Kubernetes, you're managing pods, right? And
Right.
that makes it the amount of over provision that you used to have to do now is getting shorter and shorter as we figure out how to optimize this. So for me,
Right.
it's fine. 20% is like actually okay. Like maybe we can do like 10%.
Right.
But it sounds correct. Like it's fine.
Plus, I think there needs to just be some cloud literacy and knowledge of auto scaling, so that way that provisioning is done for you, and so that way when you reach that magical 70% or whatever percentage of how much CPU memory are you taking on those nodes, that you get another node ready, so you're as close to what you need without extensively over provisioning anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Freddie.
And I think that it also goes like if your cloud costs are small, it doesn't hurt. It's interesting when it grows big enough, you know, like I do think like companies should consider getting somebody who specializes in that kind of optimization, right? Like there is like a lot of literature that like Netflix have of like, for example, using predictive partners to preemptively auto scale. Right. So Netflix says like yesterday's traffic is a mirror of today's traffic. So we know that there's going to be a rise. So let's start provisioning right now. So when the rise comes in the middle of the day, you're fine. Same with seasonality, same with these other things. But that effort it's work, and it's only worth it once you start having enough expend in the cloud from your company to say like I need to hire a DevOps engineer that just help me optimize this cloud cost.
Right. And
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, I was just
Oh,
going to
no,
mention, I know that just one company had used ML to decide when to provision new pods, and they made that a part of their solution. So there's that side as well. Useful to do that.
Yeah, it's actually a little funny that you guys mentioned that, because one of the outro slides that I had was for this ebook called the Cloud Cost Optimization Cookbook, and it's a free book that you can download from Azul.com. So if you're interested in this topic, go and download this book. It goes into some of the details that Freddie and Dano just mentioned, actually. So check that out for sure. I think I actually gave a presentation on this topic quite a bit over the last year. And Freddie, I think you hit on a couple of things which I talked about in that presentation, which is one of the biggest things is that there wasn't a process for this in the past. Right in the past, in the go-go days of the mid 2010s and the early 2000s, when we were all stuck at home, and the all the software tech stuff was going bonkers because everything was scaling up to be online and whatever. It was like expand at any cost, right? Go buy all the stuff you need, or rent as many servers, get the biggest database you can get, et cetera, right? And I think it's and as you guys know, just like almost every other business, software and computing is essentially a cyclic business. So we hit the peak a couple or maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and now we're on that kind of coming back around to, okay, maybe we spent too much money on all this like cloud stuff, and let's tighten it up a bit because we're overspending, and maybe overspending is not the right word. We have unused capacity, that's out there, and let's try to save the company money. So so we definitely see that. I know with some of the folks that I've talked to, like some of the customers that use Azul's Platform Prime, which is a high performance VM, which allows you to save on Java cloud costs by being much more efficient. There's been a lot of interest in that, obviously from our customers, but from people at large, because now it's like, okay, we're entering this, we're going to talk about this next. We're entering this era of let's invest everything into AI because that's the future, right? So let's go scrape as many nickels out of the couch as we can so that we could put it to AI. Or I say that obviously a little bit sarcastically. But also invest in other stuff, right? Because business always keeps moving. People want to invest in new things. So anyways,
Right.
I'm trying to think, is there anything else? One other thing that I wanted to ask, especially Freddie, because he works at a large enterprise, software house, is do you guys have something called a FinOps organization within your company? Basically, someone who, for those of you who are not familiar with that term, FinOps is a organization within your organization whose job it is to monitor and create best practices and guidelines and maybe even authorize the spending of money for software operations, i.e., cloud operations.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think once you start having a significant investment in cloud, it makes sense to have essentially a department that helps you manage that cost, right? Like one of the things that you can see is for example, which is this is actually great if you have a Java ecosystem, is that a lot of the cloud providers are saying, hey, if you move from our Intel technology to our ARM technology, will give you, like, it's 2/3 of the cost instead of just paying for the full, like servers. And the best part is for example, like, you start getting guidance, try things out. And if you happen to write in Java, that's a super easy move because essentially you just have to get the ARM JVM and it will just immediately code run as is without having to like change anything, right? That's a
Yep.
lot that sometimes you don't have with other languages, right? Like especially you still have like C++ or some of the Rust stuff, or some of like the Python stuff that makes real calls. You can't do that. So the thing is like the FinOps will come in and say like, hey, run it. And it really has like cost saving measures. Like it makes significant dents when you have somebody who helps you try to decide, oh, let's do this kind of policies where you can reduce cloud costs. Is there like, for example, a lot of it is conformance, right? Like if you have a big organization that is spinning up things because they have access to the cloud, but there's no cost attribution, because like things are like, they don't have a tag that tells them, oh, this is to be
Or
on
that.
this cost center or this other stuff. They'll come in and essentially chop it off and say, well, it's your bad for not putting like like who do we charge it? But,
Yeah.
but yeah, it kind of goes, like that kind of like the nice thing about being on a world with DevOps is that we have the authority to like do these things, right? Like we can go to my cloud provider and provision things, but I also have the responsibility to kind of like follow the guidelines so they know where the cost is coming, right? And
Yeah.
so it's always a good thing. I think having a FinOps is, especially as you grow up, is in your expend, it's a great idea. So.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so it's about 25 past the hour, so let's shift gears into the next topic, which we may spend way too much time on, which is Java and artificial intelligence. So there's a couple of things that we probably want to cover with this, but let's start with the one that is a little bit more developer-centric, which is what are Java developers doing for using AI specifically to help them code applications and also, generate applications, code assistance, stuff like that. This is a topic that I was talking to Freddie and Daniel about a while back. But yeah, I just want to get you guys' take on like what you guys are using as senior plus principal plus expert Java developers, Java champions even. Like, what are your favorite tools? What do you use Java and AI for? What do you use AI for in Java development? All that kind of stuff. So, anyways, I'll
Yeah.
let you guys
Yeah,
to tell the
I
audience
just
what you think
wanted
about that.
to I just want to dissect the question a little bit because there is the machine learning aspect of, hey, I want to program a neural network, I want to program a k nearest neighbor, I want to do a decision
Yep.
tree or random forest or all those. That is to me the ML side,
Yep.
which I think is definitely weak still on the Java side. And then I think there's and you could agree or disagree with me, the AI side, which is I want to tap into ChatGPT or many of
Generative
the other
AI, Gen
ones.
AI.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. So I think that's probably like a two-part question. I
Yeah.
could probably just talk about the
Why don't
ML one. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
actually, Daniel, why don't we start with the code assistants and like code generation tools that Java developers can currently use? Why don't we start
Yeah.
with that and then go into like more of the ML and then onto the Gen AI side?
Okay, well, I
So,
know what Freddie's answer is going to be, but on my side, I'm a big fan of ChatGPT. I like the conversation piece, and it tends to do really well remembering your questions, and remembering the problems that you had stated. I'm also using AI Assistant for IntelliJ,
mm,
which I like a lot. I think there are some uh, old information on that one, it seems like. And so sometimes I'll just jump over to the Chat GPT one. I'm not sure what others, I haven't talked too extensively with others about like what tool they use. I just have my own preference. So I'll just
yeah, so
I'll just go with
so
that as my answer.
exactly. So when you're in Java development mode, what do you use ChatGPT for? Like you say, hey, I'm trying to like, write a function to read a file or something. Like, just give us an
Yeah.
idea of like, what do you use ChatGPT for to help you with Java coding?
I think if you're going to be using ChatGPT, I like the conversation piece. So I usually start off with, here's my goal. Here's what I need to do entirely. And it works really great for that because then you could say, okay, let's start with the first piece. And sometimes I'll ask questions like, here's my assumption here. Am I going on the right track? And start there and have a conversation with it. And I think it goes really well. And it's AI, so it's going to be wrong quite a few
Sometimes, yeah.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you're going to say, look, I know there's this thing here, so I think you're barking up the wrong tree. And you could tell ChatGPT, just read this website or, and tell it, hey, there's this new thing called stream gatherers in Java. Why can't we use that instead? And then it'll say, oh yeah, right. And then kind of lead you down the right path.
Yep. So, Freddie, what are some of your favorite tools for like just AI generation, code generation, or AI code assistance?
Right, right. At work we actually do use GitHub Copilot. We'll have like
Mm,
you know a license. There are, for example, there are legal concerns for like using ChatGPT as much as I want to use it.
Right.
Like the moment that you paste code there, unless you're covered by some kind of like license, they essentially say we can just take whatever you have and use it to retrain our models, right?
right. So hold on. So that's in the other direction, right? Because a lot of people are worried about like if I use one of these AI code assistants and it generates code for me and I put it into my code base, is it like gotten that snippet of code from something that's like GPL or something? But you're
Right.
saying in the other direction where like if you paste some of your proprietary company's code into
yeah.
like a chat GPT, it uses it to train their model in the future.
Yeah, that is, I think like legal. I think that's what they worry the most. Like they worry the most that you put in some kind of secret sauce or something there. Like this actually happened at the very beginning, like whatever a year ago with Nokia. I think
Mm,
they pasted something and it essentially then you can almost just like prompt hint that I want this part and then suddenly just fill with Nokia's code. And so that is kind of like the big. We actually have Expedia is very responsible and have like a responsible AI intake for any of this. Like we are all and with good reason, right? Like we go to this kind of like legal review process for the tools that you want to use and how you want to use AI.
Right.
And the biggest part was first, yeah, do not leak secrets from the company. The second one, it's also a concern, but for example, Microsoft on its Copilot license will have like indemnity clauses, and there's a way for you to configure the enterprise GitHub Copilot with provenance. So it knows like, oh, I know where this code came from. It has, this type of license and it's fine, right? Like
Right.
there is kind of like those guardrails that they have for like the enterprise solutions that most of these providers are offering now. So that is less of a concern. And of course, this is all academic until somebody challenges in court and figures everything out. I don't think that has happened. But in that sense, like, it's probably harder for open source because you might be like conflating licenses. It's like if Copilot or somebody suggested something that is kind of like GPL, right? And that could be a problem when you have an open source. Certainly that's pervasive. That means that everything you have is GPL. In that sense, that's the part, yeah, that we tread carefully, but it's also like how much code, you cannot copy an if statement, and that's not GPL, that's just an if statement, right?
Right. Right.
But yeah, in terms of like the usefulness, it's amazing. Like I think it's going to change, to be honest. I think it's going to change what it means to be a software engineer, right? Like
Okay.
it's like, remember at the very beginning of the careers, right? Like when dinosaur roams the air, there were no IDEs, right? Like it was just you open something and you start typing and you have to remember the syntax and all that, right? Like then kind of like IDEs came along, and now
Right.
you almost like stumble upon, like just type some stuff and then control space and suddenly like IntelliJ will finish the actual like object call or the method lookup. Copilot is starting to go to the next step where you just almost like start writing just the intent, right? Like you put a comment, I want to read from a file, and suddenly Copilot is like, I got you, I'm just gonna put in. And now there is a new generation of code assistants that are now not just contextually on the file that you're looking, but they're looking at it on a per project basis, right? Like Codium Windsurf and Idea Genie are two of them that are coming out, and they are impressive. Like one of the things that I've been working on is in a particular pet project, at home. It's like, I create this kind of like home assistant, right? So essentially throwing ChatGPT and it helps run the home, right? Like remembers like things like change the air filters, I'm gonna make it read my emails, figure out what's important for today, all this kind of stuff. And as I'm building it, the fun part was that I created like this kind of like to-do list, and it writes to the file, right? Like I'm just gonna write to the file right now and not worry about it. And then I get this assistant like Windsurf and ask it, you know what, extract an interface for me for the data storage, right? And it went in and created the interface for me. Now make me, after doing that, and it looked very good, then I like, okay, make me an implementation that uses H2, right? So they re-implemented the interface using it. This took like 15 minutes. Like the ability for me to extract an interface, make a design pattern, have another implementation, and all the code that came out was like, okay, this is decent enough. So I think that the way that engineers are going to be is it's going to be more of, how do I shape the code the way I want it to, instead of me being typing exactly what I think it is going to be. Like I think like design patterns, the way to reduce complexity, more of going towards the architecture of things. Like I think we need an interface, an API here. Anything we need to abstract these things are going to be the way that you're going to be talking to these systems. So what that means is that for engineers, that their day job has been only doing this kind of like I call it like not quite like pipe fitters, but they have a place, right? Like you get something from XML, put it in an internal model. You get something from JSON and put it into another JSON call. And it's a fine work, but at some point in time, I do believe that those kind of things are going to be replaced by AI. AI will not be able to replace you having the ability to say, this is the right place to put in some kind of abstraction. And I think that's where the jobs, like, I think if you're an engineer, I think that's where you need to develop your knowledge and establish yourself, not just necessarily as a coder, but more of a system designer, enterprise designer, architecture, because those are gonna be the things that AI cannot do, because those are required trade-offs that AI may not be able to see, and it requires an opinion that you are the one who is feeding it in.
Right. The other thing is the AI is great for semi-older stuff, but if you're wanting to use new APIs, there isn't information for it to be used, and so there's that. And there's also if you're using AI for older code, and of course there's the legal complications
There's
for
going to be
those
Java
systems.
6 code bases out there that AI can
Yeah,
benefit
yeah.
from.
Right. And so like for example,
Yeah.
like the pattern match, there's primitive pattern matching. You could, do a match on 0, 1, 2 and actual, just regular primitives and characters and things like that. Is AI going to come up with that solution? Absolutely not. Like it's going to be 2 or 3 years behind. So if
Yeah.
you're on the cutting edge, if you're doing hard complex coding, AIs may give you a hint, but in the end, that's going to be all up to you and your brain.
Yep, yep, absolutely. One thing that I've been playing around with recently, and this goes to your concern, Freddie, about using using your company's proprietary code and pasting it into the whatever ChatGPT or Claude Sonnet. So a couple of things real quick. Currently, the based on some research I've done actually very recently, currently Claude Sonnet is the one that developers like most
Hmm.
for coding types of things right now. Okay, so that obviously Claude Sonnet is a proprietary model that you have to pay for to use. But if you run your own model, which you can do if you have a beefy enough machine or a fast enough graphics card, is the Quen Coder, Quen Quen 2.5 coder model is especially good. And you can run that on your own machine actually, and that's what I do. I have a newer Mac which has a crap ton, I think is the technical term, of memory on it.
That's right.
And because Macs have a unified memory architecture where system memory and GPU memory is just one contiguous memory block, you can just shut everything down and load up these larger models. And it actually works really good. I've tested it. I actually have a new presentation I'm working on where I test these different, Claude and ChatGPT and Codestrol, the one from Mistral, etc., and also the self-hosted LLMs, including like the DeepSeek distills of Quencoder, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole ton of them, right? Of all these different things. As well as the Llama 3.2 and Llama 3. Models, right? These are all models you can run locally, but you have to have some beefy hardware to run it. But a newer MacBook with enough memory will run that stuff. But anyways, my point is that I run all this stuff. Number one, because I'm just kind of experimenting with things, and like a lot of folks, I have restrictions on what I can use to actually generate code and put into code base at work. So I'm like, okay, let's try this, and I use it. There's actually one thing that I really like. There's this tool called C-Line or Klein or however you want to pronounce it. It's basically CLINE. Have you heard of this? You guys heard of this thing?
Mm-mm.
It runs from either the command line or from Visual Studio Code. It doesn't run in IntelliJ yet, even though there's an open support ticket to integrate it. But what's really cool about it, it has a plan and an act tab in it. So you click on the plan tab and you say, I want to create an application that does this, right? And then it'll ask you questions. Okay, so you want to build this application. Would you like what framework would you like to build it in, or do you want to use raw servlets? And I'll say I want to use Spring Boot 3.2. And it'll say okay, blah blah blah, and like it go through all these things. Do you want to use RESTful endpoints, et cetera, et cetera. and it'll allow you to plan everything out. And you click on the Add tab, and it takes everything that's in the context, basically this conversation you just had with it, and starts implementing it, and it directly in the code editor, in this case VS Code, because there's not integration for IntelliJ IDEA yet. You can literally see it create the files and start adding code into the files. Like when you, and then, once it does the initial iteration, you can say, oh, actually I need to add a products, I need to add products to this application, create a RESTful endpoint, and create a Java object that has these fields in the product object. And then you can say, and now use JPA to create the JPA constructs. It's actually pretty neat. So, and I have all that
Neat.
running locally, which is really fun. So anyways, just thought I'd throw that
That's
guy.
excellent.
That's C-Line is a little bit of a newer tool, and it stands for command line and something. But even if you don't use Visual Studio Code, you can just install it and run from the command line, and it literally, like as you're typing stuff, especially if you use VS Code, you'll see it create the file and populate code inside of it, and like create your config and all that fun stuff. So it's pretty amazing how far we've come. And one additional thing I'll add to that is a lot of developers are super worried that AI is going to steal their job. Right? They're taking our jobs, as they say. But I think that, in my opinion, right now, is that these tools are not sophisticated enough, and maybe never will be, to be able to replace a human that can think through exactly what is actually needed to build an application. Right? There's so many little nuances. It is has the AI model hallucinated something and done something completely wrong? Like if I'm building a banking system, I want a human's eyeballs on it to make sure that when someone does a withdrawal, the decimal is in the right place. Obviously, I'm being a little sarcastic, but you get the idea, right?
Right.
So I think I'd be worried if I were coming out of university right now, because we're in this weird phase where we don't know exactly what's going to happen with all this. So everything is kind of frozen, right? People aren't hiring junior devs because they're like, oh, we'll just make people like Freddie and Dano 10 times more productive or 20 times more productive with these AI tools. So we don't need that any more people. We'll see how all that pans out, right? I don't know what
Yeah.
you thought, what you guys think
So
about that.
So my thing that I wanted to start that I tried to start last year and still doing it this year is really bringing the junior programmers regardless. So don't replace them with AI. You need them, and the reason you need them is they know your business, and so a computer science knowledge goes really far. But unfortunately, now I think for a lot of young developers coming out of school, it's not enough. You have to pair it with another domain, and that's where that's where it is. So shipping, travel, whatever. And I think that's going to be part of the reality, and a lot of that could be learned on the job, and that's where junior developers comes in. They learn your domain, and they get
Right.
good at it. And so when you need to hire up into the complex side of your domain, where are you going to find it? Right? Finding it raw just out in the population is extremely hard. You should have your own pool of developers that know your domain. So keep them around. Even in light of AI, they should still be in existence there. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the pairing with AI. Do AI with a law degree, and I don't think you'll ever be out of work ever again. And I think one of the things about AI is that once the legal stuff starts to hit, and once the lawyers start to hit and say, hey, your model is using our material without attribution, got to pay. And so we'll see how AI looks in a few years after the lawyers get a hold of it.
Yeah, no, I joke that my advisor in college said, if you want to have tons of money, finish a computer science degree and get a law degree. Because,
Oh, really?
yeah, that's advice that I got like 20 years ago. Like
Wow.
because there's gonna be challenges, and there's gonna be like all these things, and it's extremely hard for lawyers to get it right, just because it's such a different disciplines, right? Like
Right.
like even the is this an API? I don't know if you ever follow that. That was happened like 10 years ago, and that was like Oracle Google lawsuit on
Oh
like
yeah.
our APIs are copyrightable, and then Judge also was the one who was kudos to him. He was the only judge who actually went and actually learned how to program to understand what an API was.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, the legal challenges that are gonna come are gonna be very interesting. The restrictions that are gonna come, like, can you use AI in Europe, right? Like, can you actually use this code helpers in certain places? You know, we have to see how all of that changes like the landscape. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think kind of to round out this topic, in the State of Java survey, we saw that everybody, every Java shop, Java developer, Java team, whatever, is either looking at or is currently using a code assistant, artificial intelligence AI code assistants, or generative AI and stuff like that. And one last thing I want to close on is that there are close this specific topic on is that there are a lot of tools out there for doing Gen AI. And sorry, Dano, we didn't get around to talking about like how do you actually do machine learning with Java, the kind of
That's fine.
how do you actually get to a model of some kind of
We'll
AI
be back
model.
next month. No, I'm just kidding.
That's right. We'll
That's
we'll be
right.
back next month. Yeah. But there are some great tools in the Java universe like LangChain for J that allow you to hook into a Gen AI platform. I believe LangChain for J basically supports everything at this point, right? Like whether you're
Okay.
using ChatGPT or even I think they added DeepSeek recently, or Claude or Mistral, or if you're running your own stuff with like the open source Llama model or the Gemma. Or the Quen models, it supports everything, so it's pretty easy to integrate the consumption part of of generative AI into your Java applications. It's a little bit more difficult currently to actually create models using Java, writing it on Java, because all those tools generally tend to still be in Python. Is that a correct assessment, Dano?
Yep, yep. And then the other thing is data scientists love their Python, like the ones that actually do the ML stuff. They like their
Right.
Python, they like their Jupyter Lab or Jupyter notebooks,
Yeah.
and they're familiar with that tool set. So the best we can do is either have an embedded model, so in other words, the same pod where your Java application resides, or do what's called a serving of your machine learning model, which is, host a RESTful endpoint and put the inputs there. And so
Yep.
that's the state we're at now, and we're going to be waiting for things like the vector API in Java, and the FFM, the foreign function memory
Yep.
model, and how to tie
Yep.
that in and to see a little bit better. And so we'll see, hopefully, a good migration into actually doing ML in Java using those.
Yeah, actually, what Dan was talking about, sorry, real quick, Freddie. What Dan was talking about is there have been an introduction of a couple of new APIs into the JVM. There's the Vector API and the FFM, the Foreign Function API,
Memory.
which will,
Mm-hmm.
Foreign Function Memory API, which will allow Java developers to write libraries to be able to do a lot of the things that is possible with Python libraries. And of course, the maybe not irony, but the irony of this is that Python, for example, like Torch and NumPy and all those other things that are used to build out these AI models, the Python code is actually just more of a shim or a wrapper around a low-level C library anyways,
Right.
right? So it's just the Python people have had a head start in it, and they've been developing these libs for years, or those tools and libs for years. So yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have like an interesting different opinion on this, where like for me is just the right tool for the job, right? Like I do feel that Python has kind of like semantic syntax. It has essentially a way to declare global variables that make you cringe. Like it has
What a feature.
as no, as a longtime Java developer, right? Like you go into an open Jupyter and start typing things, and it just feels dirty, like, right? But it comes with a purpose, and the reason is because if you're a data scientist, your interest is not necessarily trying to get the cleanest, most scalable code. Your interest is trying to get this thing, fine-tuned, train. You put in like the vector embeddings, all these other things, right? And you want to do that fast because you don't care about doing it, you care about the result, right? so for me is like let Python take the lead on that, and let them go in and data science go nuts, because like data science will be very sad doing Java, and Java developers will be very sad doing data sciencey stuff like that. So
Yeah.
for me is more about just take comfort in that Jupyter Python script is not going to give you a website, right? Like
Right.
at some point, the data scientist will say like, okay, this model is fine-tuned. I actually publish all the embeddings. It's already like open, like, whatever, like the weight models is already out there. This need to scale, and this needs to run on like for serving 1 million people, right? At that point in time, that's when we step in and say, okay, we know how to do this infrastructure. We know how to scale this out. We know how to make it resilient. We know how to actually like do DevOps on it, do tracing, optimize it to lower cloud cost, do all these things. That is our purview, and the thing that Java excels at. So for me is more of like, let's not take, because a lot of people were like essentially downcast because it's like, oh my gosh, I should have learned Python. And the answer is no, there's a right tool for the job, and Java has a huge role to play in this new AI model, in this new AI world where these things LLMs are going to take over. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Absolutely. So thanks everyone for joining. We're going to wrap this up. We're running a little bit over time. I dropped the URL for the State of Java report into the chat. So please download that. It has all the stuff that we talked about, JVM versions, Java and cloud, FinOps, and a little bit on AI also, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So you can catch up and see what Java shops are doing, what they're interested in, and what the kind of future looks like for 2025 and beyond. And of course, I would like to thank our panelists, Freddie and Daniel, for joining us. Appreciate you guys coming on the Azul webinar series and talking some AI and Java stuff with us. If you have any follow-up questions, you can reach out to all three of us. We're pretty easy to find, I think, online.
yep,
Yep.
yep.
Well, we all have somewhat unique names, right? So
That's right. The unique
all
name
right.
consortium of
That's
that's
right.
right.
The unique name consortiums of the Java champions up here, right? So
That's right.
all right. So anyways, thanks again, guys, for joining us and having a great conversation with us. And again, if you are joined as as a attendee, download the report and you can reach us on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to do any follow-up questions. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Pratik, for having us.
Appreciate it, Pratik.
Cheers.